Hello. Today we're going to be taking a look at the M.E.M.S and Associates version of the Sili Con Cellosax Model 298. So some history behind this module. It was originally made in the late 70s, I think in 78 to 79, where Don Buchla made this for his then wife Amy, who was a cellist, to be able to play along with a kind of smaller Buchla system. And this module was at that point in time 2 module spaces, and it had just a giant breadboard with a bunch of kind of circuitry packed right on there, and then some ins and outs down below it. It's quite the nested mess. It's pretty cool to look at. And it was paired up with the 259 programmable complex waveform generator, a source of uncertainty, quad function generator, the quad low pass gate, and the 270 quad preamp. So it's all within kind of one of the 8 space easel cases. And what the module allowed Amy to do is to interact with that system of modules. It would take information from her playing and kind of depending on the pitches that she was playing and the length of phrases that she was playing, the system would then interact with her. And the way Don set it up, he actually kind of wrote a score to go along with that system, or kind of to play along with it kind of specifically. And then there was moments for improvising, and it's really quite interesting idea for a module. And it's not, the module is kind of, it has all these very specific little functions. It's not really about the module as much as it is its interaction with that specific system. In the specific patching, it just kind of brings out little quirks and stuff within the other modules to make a interesting system. So there's only one of those made, and then fast forward to 2002, where David Keane was then hanging out with Don and having him commissioning modules like the barber pole modules, and this one as well. So it got shrunken down. The preamp kind of got integrated within the module, and it became the Sili Con Cellosax Model 298. I think the sax portion was added because I think maybe during the development somebody was using the saxophone to interact with it, and so that got tacked on there. So yeah, a little over a year ago, I got to go hang out with David Keane at his place, and with Chip Flynn from M.E.M.S, and I got to patch with David's modules. He has 2 of these, and there was also one that Don had. So while kind of developing this thing, he was able to test on his end, and they're able to send notes back and forth and stuff. And you can hear all about that in the Source of Uncertainty episode that we did with David Keane. So yeah, now this is the M.E.M.S version, and they sent it to me, so I got to kind of play with it in a setup, a very cool setup where it's kind of dueling Buchla systems going back and forth using this module and duetting with each other. But so yeah, I think for this video, this is going to probably be a very lengthy one, because it's not just about kind of what the module is doing, it's about the whole patch and the system of modules that are being used that brings this whole thing to life. So it kind of just doesn't make sense to like tell you what these functions do and then skip all the patching, because that's kind of the magic of it. I also think it's really interesting is that in this documentation that actually we got to kind of go through at David's place, we have the score and the specific patch points and everything, and I can't think of another time that I've seen like a specific patch laid out by Don. I think from most everything that I've heard, if you asked him if like a system could I patch this and this, and would it have this happen, and he'd be like, maybe, and he wouldn't direct anybody in any which direction. He got Alan Strange to do like the easel and Marf manuals, which has some kind of patch direction and kind of tells you some areas to go into. But this seems to be all kind of from Don's brain. So yeah, I think it's kind of cool and important to go over that because we don't see that very much or at all. So I'm going to be using my Telecaster guitar to interact with the module. So yeah, first off, it's got this preamp section. Like I said, it's kind of, I guess, as he was able to shrink things down, just add a single preamp, because the other system had a full module of 4, preamp channels, but only one was needed for the cello. So it just kind of got integrated in with the module in the 2002 version. So there's a audio in and audio out. There's a mic and line selector to boost the gain. For some reason, I'm just finding that I'm actually coming out of my 227E preamp on that module for the system interface module, the quad panner and mixer. For some reason, I kind of go direct from my guitar into here. I'm getting better results the other way, kind of preamping it twice in a way, even though my preamp on the 227E is set very low. So yeah, there's this preamp in, and what's kind of cool is you see this kind of all this circuitry diagrammed throughout the module. I'm kind of going to go through its outputs right now. There's the things like the phrase counter, the timer, and the last phrase that makes more sense when everything is kind of patched together. I'll show you some cool documentation that we got when kind of doing some scans from David's stuff. This is like the suggested circuitry for this module back in, it's dated here for 1978. So I'm guessing this is just like as he was working through the idea. And then this is dated for 1979, and this is kind of the module and the kind of diagram and the patch diagram. So you see kind of down below the segmented line has all the kind of circuitry for the Silicon cello, and up above you'll see like the complex oscillator and all these kind of routings. It's interesting because it looks like a circuit diagram. It's like it's the actual modules and sections of modules. You'll see like one section of the fluctuating section of the 266 and the whatever section it is for the it has all kind of 3 of the 266 sections and 2 different sections of the 281. So it's kind of cool just to think of these modules and all their little sections as kind of circuitry. So yeah, there's that. So also kind of just for this portion of things, I'll get this super fancy oscilloscope I have up here. Sorry, I don't have a fancier one. If you got a fancier one and don't want any more, let me know. But this is what we'll deal with. So so I'm going to plug this in to, this is the pitch CV output, and I'm going to go into the principal oscillator that's pitched for this. I think it'll just be easy to have you hear some of these functions, even though they won't be used for pitch. It just, you can hear it by it'll be easy to hear kind of what the module is doing. And then we'll also see what the voltage is doing as well. So let me turn these up. I think my oscilloscope got bounced around. Okay, so I guess to kind of back up, there's a gain knob on this preamp, and there's this low pass kind of filter for the cutoff frequency that's kind of going into this pitch out, which I'll explain in a second. And then this kind of goes through an envelope detector. So part of, like, if you see, I'm strumming the guitar, and you'll see the envelope detector down here light up, and also above the or below the kind of cutoff frequency into this sample and hold. And based on how these are kind of adjusted is, they'll function a bit differently. And so the idea is, if you kind of strum into this through the circuit, it's listening to what you're playing, and then after you're kind of done playing it and kind of go below this envelope detector threshold section, it's going to start outputting a response to that. So this pitch CV up here, which we have plugged in, the idea is basically the lower notes that you play, or lower frequencies that it hears, it will then give you a higher CV output out of the pitch CV. And then the higher pitches that you play will give you lower values. So I'll turn this back up again. So if I play a low note, you'll kind of hear it's jumped up a bit. Now if I play a higher note, we've gone lower. Play something in the middle, and here it went higher. So yeah, just to kind of go back and forth, there's something high and then low. And you can hear there's different interaction with kind of how much gain you're putting into it. If we kind of crank up the gain a bit, it's gonna give us more, here, it went high. We got a much higher CV value when we kind of cranked up the gain and we played our lower notes compared to our higher notes. And the cutoff frequency kind of plays into this as well. You see I've got it cranked up most of the way. If we back off on this, it kind of just, it lowers the output of what it's going to do. So now if I play something lower again, see, we're not getting those much higher CV values compared to if we cranked it up. Boom, there we go. And then play our higher notes, and it comes down a bit. So it's kind of like an attenuator for where you're going to use this CV internally. You can kind of just, narrow the frequencies that are going to be coming out of this. And you can also hear it kind of constantly has like a slow drop. I'm not sure if that's really how the original acted, kind of within the, as you'll see later, within the patch, it's kind of imperceivable. I know you know, some analog sample and hold circuits had a hard time, or there's trouble kind of keeping its held value. So yeah, I'm kind of not sure if it's just a circuit design that kind of has a leaky sample and hold, or what. So yeah, so there's that section of it. That's our pitch CV output. Then we get into this the kind of response section, and I think if you've kind of seen as we've been going, you know, after I play something, you'll see this response light come on. So it's like listening to what I'm doing, and then after I stop, the green response light comes on. And so now you can kind of see in the oscilloscope, and I'll turn the oscillator back up. As we're waiting, you know, it's not hearing me play anything. We've got a basically zero value. I'll play a few notes, and we see that's had a huge spike up. I think I have the CV turned too far up. We couldn't hear that spike, so we'll hear that again. There we go. So we kind of, what we heard was like a held gate, right? We can kind of see that here, and it's kind of matches the duration of the length of phrasing that I was playing. So if I just play like a very short, you know, chord, if I play kind of some, you know, if I keep on playing and I don't allow the threshold to go below the threshold, it'll sustain for longer. So pretty cool that it, yeah, has this kind of time counter within it. And, you know, so kind of we'll try and mentally note, you know, what each of these does, because where these things end up throughout the system is really interesting, and kind of, yeah, how all the this recipe works. It's just, yeah, an ingredient in the soup. This is the opposite. So obviously you're hearing this really high note, and so it's like this kind of gate is always high, and so when I play, you know, we're not hearing anything, and then during the response portion, that's when it drops its voltage to 0. So it's just kind of doing the opposite of the response. So you can kind of see so far, it's like these aren't, you know, kind of groundbreaking little pieces of circuitry thus far. Yeah, kind of simple. So now we've got this delay output. And sorry, so that was the end of the response. The first one was the response. Now we've got this delay output, which you see we've kind of like jumped up to, maybe we just have like a sustained kind of, you know, maybe 4 or 5 volts or so. And then we'll play along with this. So after I'm done playing, it drops, and then it kind of has this ramp back up. We're kind of getting some like Mario swimming sounds with that. Also, to kind of go back, you can see I kind of turned down the preamp gain. You know, if I have a lot of gain going into it, or the guitar is going to get more distorted and louder, but it's going to keep the threshold higher for longer. Like if I have sustained notes, and then it will respond. So like, so we can hear that it took, you know, my kind of sustained note a lot longer before the threshold came up, where if I turn down the preamp quite a bit and I have my sustained note, that threshold was really low because the preamp is low. So there's a lot of interaction between the gain knob and these responses. Okay, so like I said, we've got basically this pitch CV output, which takes in the pitches of notes that I'm playing and gives me a response. The length of my phrasing is taken into the response out, which gives us a high gate once we're done playing. This does the opposite, which is always high until the response comes on, and then this output drops to 0. And then we've got this delay output, which has a kind of sustained 5 volts, and then will drop to 0 while the response is going, and then ramps back up to its kind of 4 or 5 volts. So yeah, now we'll kind of pull this apart a little bit, and we'll get working on the patch. Okay, let's start digging into this patch. So I had a fun time and a maddening time trying to figure all this out, because there wasn't the kind of most clear way to get everything patched up. So in this document on the Silicon Cello that David Keene had, we've got this set up here, which is very helpful because it shows you where you're patching to from the different outputs on the 298. But once you get to those modules, these modules have knobs and switches for different settings, and so you don't know where they're kind of set up for. So there's also in this document this drawn out patch diagram, which had knob and, for the most part, most switch settings for all the modules. And I think this is, I think this is in Don's drawing or handwriting and stuff. Just the the cello and the Sili kind of looks like types of writing that he liked to use. So yes, this has then some kind of more knob functions, but there's different things that I don't know. It took me a while to kind of figure out, like, which is which for like sections on the 266 per se, because as you can see here, this is the like original Silicon Cello, kind of the bottom of its all of its outputs and inputs section, and there's no markings there, and we don't have that module. That module has changed, and so that's why I kind of need to go back and forth between these two to figure out, okay, where does response go? Where does end of response go? And then to dial up those settings, using this information. So yeah, we'll kind of use both of these to work our way through this. So I'll kind of just go, I guess, through we'll kind of set up the main outputs and kind of talk about what they're potentially going to be doing within the patch, and then we'll kind of go back through and patch the rest of the modules together. So I guess we'll start out with the pitch CV, which is I guess easiest through this one. It actually goes to the CV input that has the attenuverter on there. And we can see that like it has its pitch set up for 220, and the CV attenuverter for this is set to the left, so it's going to be bringing down the pitch voltage, which makes a lot of sense because if you remember that when we were just patching this, we would. And we had it in before, I had it set up higher, right? And remember when I was playing lower notes, the CV amount would be higher. So it would push the pitch up. And then if I was playing high notes, it would pitch it lower. Maybe a little counterintuitive if you want things to kind of match with what you're playing. So yeah, if we do set this to the left, and that kind of inverts what the CV output is doing. So when I play the low notes, it's going to put out more voltage, which will drive the pitch lower. So low will equal low, and higher notes will put out less voltage, which will kind of keep things higher. So yeah, that's how that's set up. Kind of just interesting. I don't know. I feel like in my use of this module and attenuverters for pitches, a lot of times I'm setting this higher. And so it's just kind of already interesting that I'm setting it backwards to work with this circuit. Okay, so then we're going to go down to the response output. And that one, that goes into the stored random voltage here. So I'll get a little cable for that one. We got a short movement over there. So what we know from this one, this is kind of giving out a gate signal when when its response is in play. And so that kind of sends out a high held voltage, which will trigger this. It'll probably just trigger it once, like it won't kind of repeatedly trigger it. It'll just trigger it once. So it's going to get a new value every time that this is kind of reaches the threshold, goes for its response, and it'll cycle through to a new value. We then move down to the end of response, which on this goes through to the kind of comes up here and goes into the trigger of the this first envelope generator up here. So that's perfect there. So this is what's interesting here. I guess I can kind of maybe set up this envelope generator right here. I found this interesting, being that it says 2.5 and it has the knobs kind of pointed, a little bit to the left and up. There's no 2.5 reading on here, right? Like you kind of, does this mean it's 1 and then 2? Am I using like the dots as where I should kind of place this knob? I'm not sure. So I've kind of another resource I've used. I've looked at the the current or the original Silicon Cello setup is held by this company. I think it's called M.E.M.S. They have I think they have M.E.M.S original Moog setup and stuff. They're a kind of like a instrument library or collector. I don't know. And I think they're based out of Philadelphia. And so they have it. They have the system, and it's all patched up. Like I'm guessing, once Don patched it up, it was in like an easel case. Nothing kind of moved, and it actually has like these little orange stickers to kind of indicate where the knob should be set. So if you're kind of opening the thing up and you're going to play your next set with it, you want to kind of match those settings or whatever in case knobs got bumped around. So that was also something I was kind of basing off of. And it looked like this top one, they both had the attack and decay set up to the 0.03. So the end of response, as we saw, that was kind of the opposite of the response, where it's always like a high 10 volt gate until the response comes on, then it goes lower. So you can already see that like we just have this constant high voltage because this is just a high gate, so it's just going to be putting out a high voltage. What is interesting to note, though, which is neat, is that it is set up to be cycling. So right now, it's got this high voltage. I don't have like the guitar. I still have it plugged in, but I don't have its output set up right now, and I'll kind of just maybe strum it it's still going to get the input and kind of give us a response. So if you see, if I kind of strum this off the side, you can see that it will fluctuate during the response time. So I'll kind of play for a while to give it a longer response time. Oh, now I'm like, oh, did you even see that? If this cable is in the way for that LED. So yeah, basically when the response goes, during the response time, this goes low, which is going to allow this to fluctuate and move through and progress other things in the patch. Okay, so moving on from there, I might just kind of keep following this route real quick. So yeah, we kind of patch to the response out into the input, and its output is going to go into the trigger of the quantized random here. Sorry, that's just the pulse output is going to go into the quantized there. So when we are strumming, or when we're done, when it fluctuates, or it actually kind of comes through, we then see the quantized random gets triggered every time that this cycles. Okay, so, and then actually its output is also going to get bridged to the trigger input of the 281 right below it. Okay, moving back to the 298, the last output we have is the delay output. And this is routed to, and it says 0.5 second delay, which we kind of saw that within, when we were using this, it has this constant 5 volts, I'm guessing it's 5 volts, output. And then when the response goes, it drops to 0. And then it has this kind of quick ramp up, back up. And so I'm guessing it's like a half a second ramp time that it takes to ramp back up. This is going to go into both of the change inputs on the fluctuating random. So actually what I've just found, the Buchla branded shorting bars actually match that those inputs perfectly. So then we only need to use one output there, and it'll bridge it over to the 2. So on the setting for this, for the fluctuating random right here, we can see the top one is set kind of just all set to the left, and this is basically, kind of set all the way down. So very, without this CV in here, very slow, like kind of very imperceptible changes going on. And once we add that, so now we're adding that kind of 5 volts, which now you can see it makes these things fluctuate a bit more. So I'll kind of strum again on the guitar over here, and you can I'll crank up the gain a little bit. So they kind of, when the with this, when its output drops down to the 0 volts, it's going to drop down to the very, very slow fluctuating portion. So it's kind of like when its response is going to go, or is happening, it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel it's kind of like a sample and hold, like where it brings down the voltage so much to where, it's kind of going to stay at these settings while this response is going on, maybe a little bit of changes, and then it's going to ramp back up into fluctuating around until our next response, and then it'll kind of hold those values while it's doing the response and then snap back into fluctuating again. Kind of, interesting way to use this, like in a very specific way to use this, and kind of, it's hard to me to think of I'm sure I could, figure it out maybe with the MARF or something like that and some envelope generators or something, who knows, to get that kind of functionality. But this is just like a very kind of simple, specific functionality to work with this other specific section of another random module that he has. So, all kind of simple things, but what they're doing is very specific to make this patch work. Okay. So we kind of have where all those connections are going. Now we're going to kind of, patch through the rest of the module. So let's focus on maybe the complex oscillator. So the fluctuating random CVs are going to go to the one's going to go to the modulation oscillator CV input, and one's going to go into the mod index. I'm kind of taking this as also, then we kind of like look over here, we see the top one, yes, it's going to go to the CV input for the pitch, and then the lower output is going to go into the mod index. So for this lower one, I've got that in there. And we'll bounce over here. And we can see that the oscillator is set up to kind of have the pitch set lowest, on its main pitch, and then we've got this turned all the way up, and we have this turned all the way to the left, the mod index, but we have this set to 4, which kind of has it pushed up to about here or so. On the M.E.M.S photo of that setup, it looked like it's more kind of oh, I'm sorry, this is the knob. It should be set up to 4. It kind of more looked like it was straight up is where that sticker was posted, but we'll kind of just leave it around here for now. So now we can see this is fluctuating quite a bit. But if we, were to play the guitar and get a response, which we'll wait for, it kind of slows down while it's doing its response, and then bounces back to this random fluctuating voltage. Through this, we kind of see that this is actually also bridged over to the timbre circuit on the principal oscillator. So that is set up to be set to like 1. I'm just kind of seeing that maybe be like, I don't know if it's all the way down or just a little bit up, and then this cranked all the way over. We've got up here, we see the mod CV output is going to go into the decay of our first function generator up here. We're only going to be hearing the principal oscillator out, or its final output. So I've already got that patched up. But we do have a CV input that is coming from the flat distribution, because we're saying of our quantized random voltage. So, and you know, there's been some controversy about the clone on the Roman / Stefan version. This is like the Stefan version of the SAM modular version of the 266, and I think they may be flipped around. I kind of forget. I have looked into this. I forget if mine was fixed or not. If it has, if this output is actually the kind of flat distribution, or if it's the focus is kind of like on the middle. We'll just go with this for now. So now you can kind of see what's I think is really interesting. You know, this is going into the keyboard input, which is the you know, the full on, like, you know, 1.2 volt per octave pitch input. So we have two sources that are giving this CV information. So based on the notes that I'm playing, it's going to kind of put this into higher or lower, I don't know, registers or whatever. It's going to change the pitch there. But then we're also getting this random voltage that's going to be influencing pretty widely on this 281, or sorry, from the 266. But what's triggering that, if we remember, it's this 281 that's held in this high function until the response goes. So here, I'll turn this up just a little bit, kind of strum the guitar, and once the response comes on and this starts triggering, we got a bunch of new values. So it's going to be getting 2 bits of information, of pitch information. So you'll hear that shortly. One thing to note, though, actually, maybe we'll hear it just full on, and I'll kind of bring this in later. But this is adjust for 1 octave range. So this is just a direct input, and we have already adjusted our range for this one. So we kind of have no way to adjust the range within this setup. I believe on the original 298, there were some ways to, I think we had some attenuators or something, or attenuators within the circuit that you could kind of bring this down to make this input just kind of see basically a 1 octave range of things. What I will do is I will run this through the MARF because it has a quantized section, or I guess, quantized section works too, but also you can use the limited range switches to just make it so any of these voltages are just going to be limited to a 1 octave range. We could then kind of, boost that if we want to boost the overall pitch of these. But yeah, we'll see that in a bit. So we kind of have this almost set up all the way. We got to put the symmetry is coming from the flat distribution for the stored random voltage. And actually there is, so we can see in here, there is no input, like it's not having us do the order for anything, which if you're kind of familiar with this module, you kind of need this, the order from low to high kind of modulator turned up to really get much of a difference of change from here, like when you kind of change the symmetry. Is what this will, I mean, these kind of all three interact. Once the timbre's up, then the high order harmonics come in. And if you have the high order with even harmonics, you're kind of going to get something that sounds like a sawtooth wave. And then if you go to odd, you're going to have something that sounds like a square wave. and the cool thing is kind of mixing all those together to get a bunch of different timbres, and that's why we love this module so much. On the M.E.M.S version, I did see that they have the probability section of the distribution output here patched into that. So I'm going to do that as well. Okay, so we have this module all patched up at this point. I think what I'm going to do is kind of then go over and finish off the two 281s that we're using. So we've got the CV output from the modulation oscillator going to the decay input, and then what we also can see is that let's see, what do we got going from here? So actually, yeah, it's the this is patched up a bunch of different ways. So actually the decay from here is going to go into the attack for the channel above it, and that's the same source as the symmetry, which is our kind of flat distribution source over here. So, if we followed that out, that kind of went all the way over up here, and then it's going to bounce into these two as well. So I'll kind of patch it up opposite. It's not going to make a real difference there. Okay, so this is doing a lot of work here. It's going to be changing the symmetry, the attack, and the decay. We then so we've got this fully patched up. The CV output doesn't do anything. This is really just kind of changing our trigger source for this, which is triggering the envelope below it from what we'll actually hear go into the 281, which I guess I can 281 into 292. So we'll hear it. We've got that set to like 1 in the same kind of 2.5. We need to patch its attack, and that is coming from the top fluctuating random here. Okay, so yeah, we've got that set up. It's trigger's not going anywhere. This is, just going directly into here. We can turn that one down. You can see, then it's bridged up here. It looks like it's just set in combo mode. It was kind of hard to tell when I was looking at the M.E.M.S one if this was, it looked like maybe it was set to gate mode, and kind of play with that. Okay. So I guess moving back to now the random, because we have this module all set up, we have this one set up. There's still maybe a few things to do down here, maybe not. Let's see. Oh yeah, so we've got our lower channel. The stored random is its bottom output is also patched up into the quantized random to move the amount of quantization. So it looks like it has its knob set here. And we'll take a short patch cable to go into there. Okay, I think that's kind of it. So pretty dense. If we look at one thing we haven't kind of checked here is we've got the phase lock and amplitude modulation turned off. We have the pitch and timbre turned on. So yeah, it's going to get information from the modulation oscillator. We also have fluctuating random kind of messing with that as well. These knobs are both turned down on here. We already went over that. There's no kind of FM inputs there. So actually, you know what, I said we'd kind of check it without it, but let's do what they want us to do in the patch, which is limit this says better here, adjust for 1 octave range. So to set that up, we will get a longer cable and we'll patch it into the we'll patch it into the external input A here. We'll use the first output here, run this into the input. And so for this first channel, we're just going to use the, we're going to set the source to external. We'll set it to A because we've got it going into the A input. And we'll just limit this to 0. We can kind of mess with this later and maybe even turn on the quantized section too. This should kind of be set up for 1.2, or, you know, it'll maybe help things stay in tune a little bit more. Okay, so let's maybe hear what this thing is gonna do. We might need some more fine adjustments here. So I'm gonna turn up the oscillator here. I'm still not gonna kind of have you hear the guitar yet. I'm just going to strum it so it'll kind of do that. So yeah, you won't hear the guitar, you'll just hear me kind of strum it, and that'll activate the response. So we're hearing these, you know, I guess we've got different changes of pitch, and you can hear kind of the modulation of the timbre. The way that we have the modulation, I think it's kind of interesting. If we remember this, this fluctuating random goes into the modulation oscillator, and that's kind of, you know, fluctuating a lot right now. But when it actually goes in response, it's going to set it at 1 point. And the way the fluctuatings work, they're rarely low. They're usually more high than they are low. So it's going to keep the modulation oscillator from doing much for most of the time. But there are points where, like, oh yeah, we just caught it in a moment where it is going to be doing a bit of modulation. So I'll kind of boost the gain a little bit and try and get a longer response to see how it's going to react. Or actually, let's do some kind of quick notes. So we heard more modulation kind of come through on that one. That was a kind of, yeah, I like that one. It was kind of long. So yeah, all these kind of random voltages that are going into the attack and decay, we're going to get pretty vastly, or, you know, it can respond in different ways. We haven't really got too many shorter attack, or kind of shorter responses. They all have been kind of long so far. And sometimes I've kind of found, like, if you kind of turn down, like, the, you know, attack and decay a little bit, there we go. We kind of got some shorter responses on that one. Actually, let me kind of strap on the guitar and have you kind of hear that portion of it too. Okay, so I'm not going to use the audio output because like I kind of mentioned before, I already have the preamp working for this. So I'm just going to go direct from my 227 preamp right back into one of the mixer inputs. This is so I can kind of play with the amount of gain, which has a lot of interaction with the response. Like I showed you before, if we have the gain turned up, it's going to boost that threshold. It's going to take longer for the response to pop up, and so I just have more play without kind of overly distorting my signal at the same time. So yeah, we're in this very low range. So we can kind of play with like, should be if I'm playing something higher, we're going to get higher notes. But if I play something lower, yeah, it works, because it's going to push it down. So it's like if I'm playing... If I play something more in the middle, yeah, it's still pretty low. So you're starting to get the idea of this. So it's, taking into account the pitches that I'm putting into it, and then also the length of my phrasing, especially if I kind of turn this down a bit and it has like a quicker response. Because I played for, probably more like 5 to 10 seconds there, we're getting a much longer response there. Oh no, I'm like, I just realized, wait, no, I think I just... So yeah, we got some call and response going on here. So now, we've kind of gone through all the outputs, and this is how the patch is set up. And now we kind of go into the actual, or part of this other circuitry that plays along with, having this kind of written score, which was part of the information that we got from David. So it has this full kind of, written out score, and which is romantic and melodramatic, and I couldn't translate this to playing guitar. I'm hopefully going to get this into somebody else's hands that maybe could take this on with their own instrument and play along with this. So this comes into this phrase counter section and also the system initialize. So you've seen this go light being lit up this whole time, and when it's in this go section, it's ready to play along with you. But if you hit this system initialize button, this kind of resets everything. So now we have this phrase counter that comes into play, and if you kind of look along, so the idea of the score is that Amy would, I guess, play this score, or these phrases, and it kind of matches up with 7 phrases. We have a 7 phrase delay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it says repeat the last phrase until the silicon responds, then begin section 2. So now that we've initialized this, if I play something, it kind of just skipped. It really is, you kind of have to have the gain set up to how you're playing. So we've heard this, so I'm done with that kind of phrase. We got no response, nothing happened, right? Nothing. So this allows you to kind of, through this score, you're able to play your 7 phrases. And then after that, now we're in the go mode. And we start to get our responses. I'm going to turn this up a little bit. I've kind of found this 220 is a little bit low for... So yeah, I'm going to turn that up a bit, and I'm also going to back off on pushing the voltage lower again with the type of pitches I'm putting into it. So now it talks about these next kind of 4 sections of this score, and they're improvisatory duets between the cello and the electronic apparatus. And the cellist needs to, or responds to, as well as initiates variances in pitch, pitch range, timbre, tempo, note shape, modulation, characteristics, phrase length, and tuning mode. Dynamic variations are few. This meaning, it's like we've got nothing in between the 281 and the 292, nothing to kind of, it's going to go 0 to 10 volts every time. So we're going to basically, nothing's going to get softer or louder from the, from the system. Both instruments generally play at similar levels. Recall occasional thematic material from section 1. The 3 sections are characterized by differences in timing and phrasing as follows. So then you can kind of see he's written out these kind of duet patterns these little squiggly lines. And so so it's like, you know, basically you kind of go back and forth. I mean, you kind of gotta have the cello or your instrument play first, but it's like, you know, you play phrase length and it's gonna respond in the same kind of phrase length, and then, you know, shorter bits and then longer bits. Oh yeah, somebody is here to pick up my kiddo, so please disregard that that message that just came through. So the cello and silicon exchange phrases throughout, overlap except for occasional brief interruptions of silicon by the cello. The cello plays phrases from half a second to 15 seconds in duration. Silicon responds with phrases of similar length, which we've kind of seen, but I haven't played over it as much, because you can get it when it's in its response. I can if I play again, it's going to shut the thing up and start listening again. So if I kind of play like a longer phrase again, and it's going to start playing its stuff, I can interrupt it again. I'll kind of do that again. I'll just interrupt it. So there you go. You can kind of hear me playing over it a bit. And then we're kind of going to now get into this timer section, which is really interesting. So once you start playing for about 15 seconds or so, or you kind of don't let it play as much as it wants, or don't let it respond, this timer kind of kicks in and it will start playing over you and play at the same time. So, it kind of gets into this like section 3 where it says cello frequently interrupts silicon, occasionally plays under the silicon at reduced level. So, you know, because you're going to have more dynamic range, hopefully with like your acoustic instrument, you kind of, you know, set that preamp up to where, you can kind of play softer under what the when the silicon is playing its section. So you kind of play together and then interrupt it periodically as you kind of get louder and hit that threshold. The silicon occasionally accompanies the cello and continues to respond at end of phrases. So I'll just kind of play for about like 15 seconds or so. If I maybe I'll kind of back this off a little bit too. So you can see it kind of like wanted to play right there, but I keep on, interrupting it. And we can kind of see this timer go on. So we're kind of playing together. I'm playing lighter, but if I kind of then stop, that timer goes out. It's still playing, and I can interrupt it again. Okay, so then I just got to where I didn't want to hit, but the last phrase came up. So, which at the bottom, you can kind of see through here, the cello is playing for a long time. So we're kind of getting basically what I did. It's like I was playing for about 15 seconds, and then the Sili Con cello started to play with me, and we're both kind of playing stuff together. And if you do that for long enough, I think it's like another 15 seconds, the last phrase light comes on. And this basically kind of signals the end of the responses. So now we did just see that kind of go on for a second. So now if I play, I get no responses. The Sili Con Cellosax is done with me. Unless I initialize the system again, and then we're back to back to square one. So it is pretty cool how you can you've got this solo section that you can, you can set this up for however you want to with your kind of preamp gain. And, whether it's going to respond very quickly to your phrases to kind of get right to the point, to the response, and your improv with it. And then as you're going, bring in, play longer phrases to have it start playing alongside with you, like we were doing. Playing a lot of higher notes, and it is ending up playing a lot of higher notes with me. And it's now playing kind of lower notes with me as well. Really kind of cool to hear. I think that has to do with like the sometimes at the end of its phrases you'll hear more modulation come through, because like with these fluctuating randoms kind of ramping back into fluctuating again. It's just like, with all the random that's going into these envelopes, and into the modulation section and the timbre and stuff, you get a lot of cool variation. I'll kind of maybe pause here for a second, and I've been working kind of on a piece with this, and setting up some things with the MARF to kind of try and make it, or not really adhere to the set schedule of the 7 phrases and everything, but kind of tune a few things and get it to work with me, and kind of something that I would like to, how I'd like to use it. Okay, so now we're back after I've made a few modifications to the kind of like original silicon cello patch, and made it more of my own and how I would like to perform with it. So the main kind of thing is the how pitches were being sent, pitch information is being sent to the 259 oscillator. It was completely random with the quantized voltage section getting triggered every time the top 281 was cycling, and we did kind of throw that through the MARF so we could get our, to have it only work within 1 octave, with a 1 octave range. And what I've done here is, instead of kind of running it through the external inputs, I went through and basically put in notes that I want to, specific notes that I want to play, like kind of like within a scale that I'm playing in, which I think, I don't know, something in G I have currently set up right now. And so now the quantized random is still going into the MARF, but it's going to randomly kind of pick a note from my range of notes within the scale that I want to work within. And then that's being quantized and, oh, maybe I had that up on accident. Or maybe, actually, no, I have a couple, let's see here. I kind of have it jump a few octaves here and there. So it kind of spans within, I don't know, maybe an octave and a half or so range. And so yeah, that's going into the main input. And then the secondary set where we had the pitch CV going into the other CV input with the attenuverter, I'm now having that go into the other side of the MARF, and kind of in the same way that, we have it set up, like if you play higher notes, it will also kind of play in a higher range, and if you play lower notes, it'll move to a lower range. I have that still kind of happening, but it's a bit more like muted in a way where I have it bounce up. If I'm playing low notes, it's going to push up into these higher, the stages up into these higher stages, which have the time sliders pushed up, and I have those going into the CV input, which is going to jump it up an octave. And when I play, so lower notes will jump it up into an octave. Playing higher will kind of keep it in this lower range where I don't have any of these time sliders pushed up, so it'll play in a lower octave. So kind of do opposite, which is kind of, I don't want it to want it to generally do opposite of what I'm playing, just to kind of spread the frequencies out a bit. Okay, so just to show that, let's see here. Oh yeah, I was just playing on the one note because I didn't have this set to external. So now it'll jump through the MARF stages. And play these, notes that are somewhat within the same kind of scale that I'm working in. If we kind of look over here, so if I play, some higher notes, we're staying in this lower range, where if I play lower note, we shot up into these higher stages, which I have the time sliders up, and so that's going to jump it up an octave. Okay, So that's what we have kind of set up here. I didn't really change anything with like the random here. Other things that I've done is I've switched this the range of the modulation oscillator into the higher range. So we're into kind of audio rate. And when we kind of push up the modulation index a bit to where maybe more modulation is going to come through, we just kind of get more textural kind of things. So yeah, kind of more textural things. I then kind of will play also with the wave shape. If I put it up to the square, this is also going into like the decay of this first 281, and it has an effect. It tends to either be very kind of, or set it to be slower, or it'll go really fast. I'll then periodically kind of also add in the amplitude modulation too, just to, with like within this kind of section of a piece I'm playing with, to get things a little bit more crazier as well. So yeah, more texture. You've probably also heard I've now incorporated, I take a second output of the 281 for the principal oscillator. I'm running it through the M.E.M.S and Associates 291 dual voltage controlled filter, and that's then being sent into the 277 signal delay, so you can kind of hear a delay happening with there. I also have the guitar running through the delay as well, so just the guitar. I'm sorry. That also then brought out the direct signal of the oscillator, and you're hearing the it going through the bandpass filter and the delay, and I'm slowly sweeping the center frequency of that bandpass filter, and then kind of combine the original signal back in. I also now have the lower distribution output, the lower output of the quantized random voltage going into the panning, left and right panning of the channel for the principal oscillator. And yeah, so I've been kind of playing with this type of setup for the last couple weeks as kind of learning this module, and so yeah, maybe I'll just kind of run through a bit of this, this piece, so you can kind of hear it in action. I might kind of tweak the gain at a certain point, so the threshold is higher, and it won't respond as quickly. I'll also kind of maybe punch up the mod index, and switch the wave shape throughout. So. All right, I will let it rip. All right. That was something. Got through the last phrase and kind of ended there. And yeah, thanks for tagging along. I'm just kind of blown away by this whole module and setup. It's been really fun to play with. Big thank you to Mark and Chip with M.E.M.S and David Keene for all this other information, and Don Buchla, of course. So yeah, if you have any questions about it, let me know, and thanks so much for watching.